This is a Volvo C40 Recharge, a new for 2022, small, fastback crossover SUV that is based on the XC40 SUV, but this one is BEV only, battery electric vehicle. It is in fact this same powertrain that is in the XC40 Recharge, which is also the same powertrain as the Polestar 2. Well, the dual motor Polestar 2 anyway. And that's a car that I reviewed when I still worked at Auto Week, and I have a link to that article in the description if you're interested. But I did also review the single motor Polestar 2, which is, you know, half of this powertrain, you could say. And if you're at all interested in that, I also have that in the description, and I'll go ahead and put the link up there as well. More specifically, this is a 2022 Volvo C40 Recharge Twin Ultimate, painted in Fjord Blue, which is a $695 optional color. Quick note about that though. There are 8 colors available for the C40, and 7 of the 8 colors are $695 extra. The one exception to that is a black paint called Black Stone. The Ultimate is the top of 3 trims available in the C40 above the Core and the Plus. The C40 is also part of Volvo's larger aim to only sell electric vehicles by the 2030 model year and be a fully carbon neutral company by 2040. That is an ambitious goal, to be sure, but Volvo does benefit from not having as full a lineup as some of the largest car companies out there, and I think it's pretty obtainable for them. My name is Robin Warner, by the way, an experienced engineer and magazine editor, and I'm already carbon neutral, as long as I don't eat a Breen burrito, or some chili. Or I review all kinds of cars, from a $25,000 Ford Maverick to a $425,000 Rolls-Royce Cullinan. I'll happily jump into Honda Accords, BMW M3s, and Porsche 911 GT3s. And I have fun every time. Please subscribe and join me. The base price for a Volvo C40 Recharge Core is $56,395. Jumping into the Ultimate does add $4,800 to the price and costs $61,195. And my test car did have that optional paint and cost $61,890. Okay, with that, I think now is a good time to pull over and show you around and inside this car in a bit more detail. So you've decided you want an EV and that you want it to be small and swanky, kind of like an XC40. But you also want it to have a touch more flair than that. Well, then perhaps you want this Volvo C40. Looking at the front, you definitely have this loud and proud Volvo logo right there in what is not much of a grille. It is mostly blanked out, and that is good for coefficient of drag for sure. Allows the air to flow over here. You do have a little bit of a gap down below. You do need some ventilation for other components, of course. You've also got these nice headlights right here with this cool kind of hash mark daytime running lights in between them. And this C40 does have the fog lights as well. Generally speaking, it is a nice, simple, minimalist design, and it is certainly distinctly Volvo. But unlike other Volvos, under the hood isn't an engine, of course. We've got 0.7 cubic feet of storage in here. That's right, yes, we do have a frunk. Looking at the car in profile, you get a better sense of this fastback shape, the line just flowing down all the way to the back to these little roof-mounted spoilers right here, which are an interesting little touch. Volvo does say these do affect aerodynamics, but I wouldn't expect that much downforce from them specifically. Generally speaking, it's a nice looking small SUV. It certainly has a nice shape to it. Again, definitely keeps with the Volvo theme of things. I will go ahead and put the dimensions up on the screen right now so you can check those out, and let you know that I have a lot more information in the description. It doesn't look too much like an SUV to me at first glance, but to be fair, it is over 5 feet tall, and it does have actual decent amount of ground clearance down here. Now, I wouldn't take this to the Moab necessarily, but you get my point. Couple of details. I do like the black side view mirror covers and the black window trim, as it pairs really nicely with the panoramic glass roof up here, and that is standard across the board in the C40s, and you'll get a better look at that once we get inside. And no, this is not a gas cap. Here's your charge port. On the ultimate trim of the Volvo C40, you get 20-inch wheels to roll on. The other two trims are 19s. Looking at the car in back, here's a better sense of these wing elements here, this roof-mounted spoiler, these just kind of two little louvers that are here and here. They are supposed to help direct air and aid a little, and Volvo does claim that this rear spoiler right here, this wing technically, does add just a little bit of downforce to help keep the rear end stable at higher speeds. Ironic, because Volvos are all governed at 112 miles an hour, which is not that fast these days. I think it is a nice looking shape, and again, I do like the color, and I like how the taillights kind of blend into the center of it. Volvo is certainly not ashamed to let you know who built this car, and you know, this composite bumper down here even works for me. "24 cubic feet of storage is what you have behind the second row, and you do also have this nice flat loading floor, and underneath that a bit of extra storage. And if 24 cubic feet of storage isn't enough for you, yes, the second row does fold down, and when they do, there's actually a little neat trick for them. That is an electric headrest folder, so that the second row neatly fits behind the front row seats. That is also a feature of the ultimate trimmed C40, and it just makes your life a little bit easier. Anyway, this now is 49 cubic feet of storage space and maybe room for a bike. Let's find out. Yeah, fits no problem. You know, because this is less than 175 inches long, I was actually a little nervous about a bike fitting in here, but yeah, it's actually not so bad. The height here makes it a little bit harder to get in. You have to get the angle just so to get the bike in, and it's even harder when you're also filming it. But yeah, bike fits just fine. This is not a very big vehicle, but it is pretty well set up to give a decent amount of space. But before I get in, I wanted to show you. So the headrest, you can see it's folded, just pops up like that, no problem. Here's another perspective of how the seats fold. So as I fold it, that comes down automatically. And now you can see I have tons of space. So even if you're a tall driver and the front row is set way back, it's still very likely to fit. It's just a nice little touch. And before you get in, nice little pockets of storage right there. Does seat 5 in here, but this is not a very wide place, so I think you'd want to avoid seating 5 if you can. And that does give the passengers back here cup holders and an armrest. Hey, hey. Once we're in, you can see that I have a good 2 or 3 inches of knee room here. I am 5'11" tall, or 181 centimeters, and the seat bottoms are relatively high. It's not super great, but I have a little bit of thigh support. It's not as good as the Hyundai Santa Fe that I was in recently, but it's certainly not bad. I do have less than a 90-degree bend in my knees, so that's pretty good. And one highlight is looking up at this beautiful glass roof right here. This is standard on all C40s, and it lets in a ton of natural light, and I still have good headroom here, so this is a really nice feature and just really adds an airiness to the space. Also, because this is an ultimate trim, I do have heated seats for the second row and a bit of power as well. Those are 2 USB Type-C plugins right there for the rear passengers. As I open the door to the front, you can see that the minimalist style of Volvo kind of carries through right in the door. Just kind of this open paneling right here that does allow a lot of space here in the door trim. Usual controls right here. You do have 2-position seat memory right here, and you do have power options for the seat right here, including lumbar support. This is not leather. There is no leather inside the Volvo C40. Volvo claims this is the first Volvo to not have any leather in it of any kind. So vegan interior, I guess you could say. It is a nice feeling material, comfortable, and it is supportive as well. Another thing that's missing in this car, you can see where one might be in other models, is a start button. The C40 uses the weight sensor in the seat and the proximity of the key fob to know that someone's in the car and automatically turns on. So all I have to do is put the car in drive and off I go. you were looking at a 12.3-inch instrument cluster screen right here, fully digital of course, and it does give all the pertinent information if you want. And there are two different modes for this screen. This is called COM mode. You can press a button on the steering wheel, in fact, this button right here, and that turns on Navi mode, and you get Google Maps screen right there. And I say Google Maps because if I go over here to the 9-inch center console touchscreen, the operating system is called Android Automotive Operating System. This is a Google system. I've used Android Automotive on Polestars before, and it is a very well-run, smooth, fast operating system. So this, to me, this is a plus. We do also have a Qi wireless phone charger right here. And while all Volvo C40s do get dual climate control and heated seats, the Ultimate gets you a heated steering wheel as well. All right, we do have a relatively standard looking Prindle right here, reverse neutral drive park, a couple of cup holders. Oh, and I should have showed you before, above the wireless charger are a couple of more USB Type-C ports and your 12-volt power right there. And past the cup holders, this is a fun little thing. So we have lower storage right here, and we have this little bin right here. This is a garbage can. Okay, looking up, you have a couple of switches for lights here, which are nice, but just another view of that panoramic glass roof, which I think is quite beautiful. Let's talk a little bit more about this Android Automotive operating system. First of all, I can press this button right here. You do have Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. It is wired. You can also press this button right here, and that gets you to this screen, which has a lot of good information on it. Range Assistant was the thing we were looking at before. We also have 360-degree view camera. That is courtesy of being the Ultimate trimmed package. And we also have Google Assistant. I can just say, hey Google. Or I can just press this button right here on the steering wheel. The steering wheel itself does have controls for the center console system over here and for adaptive cruise control over there. Adaptive cruise control is also for the Ultimate trim. We'll talk about more of that in just a moment. But I did want to cover one more thing on the center console touchscreen, and that's if you go to settings, you have a lot of options right here. And the one that I'm most interested in showing you is driving. Here are all the driving assistant systems you have. And I think this is really interesting how easy it is to turn individual things on and off. So you don't have drive modes per se, but you do have a lot of ways to affect the way this car drives. Off-road mode, steering assist, and then the different safety assist systems and driving and that kind of thing. But also, you can turn on or off one pedal drive or how firm you want the steering wheel to feel. I really appreciate how it's individualized like this, so you can really cater the driving to just how you want it. Also, one thing about one pedal drive, that turns on or off creep mode. Creep mode is when you lift off the brake, the car will start idling forward, just like a standard internal combustion engine with an automatic transmission would do. So if you want that kind of like traditional automatic transmission feel, you want one pedal drive off. If you want it to be more like what an electric vehicle truly is, leave one pedal drive on. Anyway, we've been talking about driving a lot. Let's get back to the drive. All right, let's dig into the powertrain. All three trims of the Volvo C40 share the same powertrain. 2 electric motors, 1 on each axle, and a 78 kilowatt-hour battery pack. Each motor is equally powerful, producing as much as 201 horsepower and 243 pound-feet of torque. Altogether, that means you get 402 horsepower and 487 pound-feet of torque, and that is instant reacting, very fast, there all the time, electric motor torque. It is very potent. One quick note, I know I said each electric motor makes 243. 243 times 2 is 486, not 487. However, Volvo's core unit for torque is Newton meters, and it is 330 Newton meters per motor, and that converts to 243.4 pound-feet of torque. And so if you put the two together, that does round up to 487, 486.8. Each electric motor does have its own single-speed drive-down gear transmission, and of course, having them on each axle means that we do have all-wheel drive. And I have to tell you, I really do love this powertrain. I thought it was fantastic in the Polestar 2. Even with the single motor, it was pretty darn decent, and I'm really enjoying it in this C40 as well. Even though this is a heavy car, it's an 1,100 pound battery pack after all, it still feels very quick, very energetic, and not only is it the ultimate pace that you get, it's the response. I mean, everything is effectively instant. You hit the throttle and it's there. And I absolutely love that. And the torque is continuous and it is there very low and just keeps on going and pulling. And it is inherently extremely smooth, extremely quiet, and yet extremely potent. Now, extremely quiet is actually a double-edged sword. I do, more than anything, miss the nice engine sound. When done right, internal combustion engines can sound so amazing. They can be soothing when they're just rumbling along at low RPMs and then just roar and growl when they're at full throttle. It's just like this pulsing, menacing sound that just fills you with energy and gets your heart pumping. I love it. We don't have any of that here. But I don't know. The effectiveness and the quick response of electric motors do make a very strong case for themselves. Now, I do myself have one pedal drive on. That is what I prefer. I really like the ability to both accelerate and decelerate smoothly just with one analog motion of my right foot. And I did want to just briefly show you how much deceleration you get. So I'm going to turn one pedal drive off. Okay, one pedal drive's off, lifting off the accelerator. Just coasting down, no real feel of deceleration much at all. It's just the wind against the body that's slowing us down. We lost like 2 miles an hour doing that. All right, I'm gonna turn one pedal drive on now. Okay, going right around the same speed, gonna lift off again. Yeah, and that's noticeable deceleration, and we're slowing down 10, 20, 25 miles an hour. We slow down in the same amount of time. Briefly, I will let you know that you do get 94 miles to the gallon in the city, 80 on the interstate, and 87 combined. Now, this is an EV. Those numbers mean a lot less to people, generally speaking. You want to know range. The EPA says that this has an estimated range of 226 miles. In Michigan, in the winter, it's probably a little bit less than that, especially when you have a heavier right foot like I do. But I will say I've been driving this car a fair amount today, and range is following in accordance. It is not falling faster than I expected. Once you get that lower range, it does seem to stick to it pretty well. This can accept up to 150 kilowatts worth of charging, and Volvo says that means it can go from 10% to 80% charge in about 37 minutes. If instead you recharge on a level 2 system, 220 volt system, it will take between 8 and 12 hours depending on how many amps you get from that system. The C40 does come with an 11 kilowatt onboard charger. Now, I did mention that range is tracking pretty well despite being in the north. Well, the Ultimate does come with a heat pump, and a heat pump extracts heat from the battery pack and other systems to get hot when they operate and feeds that into the cabin. So it takes away some of the electricity needed to warm the cabin up, to use heaters to warm the cabin up. But I will say that is another advantage of EVs that I really appreciate, especially in the winter. Just like an electric heater in your house, the moment you turn the car on, it starts warming up. On top of that, I have the heated steering wheel and the heated seats. All of that stuff is on. I am toasty warm in this car, and I have been since the moment I started. All right, we got through the important parts, fuel economy, range, all that kind of stuff, but none of that is nearly as much fun as accelerating. Of course I had to test that. Let me show you right now. All right, everybody, time for an acceleration test. I have 402 horsepower, 487 pound-feet of torque, and all-wheel drive. I'm actually kind of expecting good things here. And yet there's no specific drive modes or anything like that. I'm just gonna get to my spot and accelerate. Okay, getting to my spot. And full acceleration. Oh man! Wow! As I expected, no hint of wheel spin at all, instant torque from those electric motors, and just massive acceleration. Volvo says 0 to 60 in 4.5 seconds, and not only do I believe that is repeatable and much more flexible in terms of weather conditions than an internal combustion engine would be. I think it can go 0 to 60 in 4.5 seconds in most any condition as long as it has the traction. Wow. This is a small crossover SUV, and it is one that weighs more than 4,800 pounds, but it also has a very low center of gravity, and it does have a lot of ties to Polestar, as I mentioned. So I have to admit, I was pretty curious, and I wanted to see how it handles. Of course, I had the cameras running. Let me show you that right now. All right, everybody, time for a handling test. See what this little Volvo SUV can do. The ground is a little wet and it is quite cold, but we've also got this low center of gravity and, I'm a curious person. The one change I did make was I did turn one pedal drive off so I have more normal coasting. Anyway, let's see how it goes. Yeah, no worries with acceleration. I love electric torque. Oh man, pretty quick response from the front end. We do get a fair amount of roll, but grip is a little bit higher than I expected, if I'm honest. Yeah, that is a really responsive front end. I'm amazed at how little steering lock I need to get the car to turn in. There's no engine up front. The vast majority of the weight in a single sense is the 1,100 pound battery down low, and it is really low. So that gives us really interesting chassis balance and, a much faster, more direct feeling front end. I have to say, that is a pleasant surprise. I genuinely wasn't expecting this, but I'm turning around. I want to do it a little more. Ooh, wet pavement. Gotta be careful. It's wet, it's cold, and it's even a little muddy. Okay. Wow. All right. Okay. So we do have a fair amount of body roll. It's not some super tightly sprung thing. So body control isn't that rigid, but you can definitely feel that the weight is down low, and you don't have this big swinging axis to worry about. The front end response is way faster than I expected, and the steering rack is also a lot faster than I expected, and the tires grippier than I expected as well. Considering that this is cold, wet ground, they really behave pretty darn well. It was stable, and even in these wet conditions, we never had any nervous moments or anything like that. This is a fully competent and, I have to say, enjoyable little SUV to go around some corners in. Yeah, it was actually a decent amount of fun to buzz around some corners in this thing, but most of the time you're in this car, it probably will not be at the lateral limit, so let's talk a little bit about the ride. This has a very comfortable ride. I'm actually pleasantly surprised at the compromise that the engineers made between handling and ride. Handling surprised me. It was better than I expected, and yet the suspension and the shocks are plenty compliant. The C40 goes over bumps and heaves the road and expansion joints with little trouble. It is stiffer than the plushest crossover SUVs out there, but it really isn't bad. And that's true on roads like this or on the interstate. Yes, I tested it there as well. Let me show you that. All right, everybody, time for a quick stint on the interstate. I do have one pedal drive back on, but the interstate is where many cars are one pedal drive effectively. And I do have all the driver assist systems on, as I showed you earlier, but I've left those on for everything, so that's no different either. And we'll also keep an eye on wind noise and road noise and see how this thing is generally in terms of comfort. Okay, cruise control is set. We're going with traffic right around 80 miles an hour. Because we are in the Ultimate, we do have adaptive cruise control, and we do also have pilot assist, which basically makes use of adaptive cruise control and tries to help with stop and go traffic and things like that as well. There is a nice big list of driving aids that the Volvo does come with. I'll go ahead and put those on the screen so you can check those out. We are, of course, in an electric car, so engine noise is a non-issue, and also, wind noise is pretty darn good considering everything. There are little hints of baffles and whistles here and there on occasion, but generally speaking, this is a very well isolated cabin, and that's also true for road noise as well. I'm actually pleasantly surprised with how well Volvo isolated the cabin from exterior noise, and EVs have an extra burden of engine that would drown out some of those other whistles and buzzes. So yeah, generally I'm very happy in this car. I think it's a fantastic highway cruiser. The ride's great, and all the instruments are easy to read, and these seats are proving quite comfortable as well. And also range is actually holding up pretty well as well, even in this cooler weather. Volvo calls this an SUV. The government actually agrees, calls it a small SUV. So, can it tow? Yes, it can. Volvo says that you can tow up to 2,000 pounds in the C40. It's not a lot, but that is also more than nothing. And that number actually drops a little further if you do not have trailer brakes. Volvo says 1,650 pounds, right around 800 kilograms. But, you know, if you need to haul around a couple of motocross bikes, a jet ski, maybe a small utility trailer, you could probably do that with this car. But you also might want to pay closer attention to range. So what do we have in this Volvo C40? A fastback, swoopier version of the XC40. Yet with that like nice, classy, minimalist design from Volvo. This really is a sharp-looking small SUV. And it does offer a decent amount of space despite its swoopiness and its smaller size. So this is a car for people that really do prioritize design and style and form over function. But it doesn't provide any practical objective gain over the Volvo XC40 Recharge, which I would have to say would be my choice between the two. But obviously, with experience in engineering, not design, I doubt that's a surprise. This is a really nice battery electric vehicle, and I do really like the Android Automotive operating system. And I think that fits into the design strengths of this car as well. So if you want to get into the EV space, this is a good looking way to do it. I'm Robin Warner, thank you for watching. And if you like this video, I'd really appreciate it if you show me and everybody else by giving it a thumbs up. Doing so really does help me out a lot. And if the C40 interested you, another car you should definitely check out is the new Hyundai Ioniq 5. That is another battery electric vehicle from the Korean brand, and it is very, very cool. Also all-wheel drive, also impressively quick, and also a pretty funky design. And from there, I've reviewed a whole bunch of vehicles, so hopefully there's something else you'd like as well. I've got that up on the screen right next to me, and if you do watch it, I hope you like it. Okay, goodbye for now.